Hello everyone, it's Adirunke again. I hope your day is going well. Today I'd like to talk about big cats briefly and touch on their significance to the Yoruba culture. When we think of Yoruba people, people typically don't think of big cats, bigger sized members of the Felidae family. But big cats and other animals that are typically classified as wild really play a major role in our culture. As a matter of fact, I'm going to dare say that 70 to 80% of the Yoruba culture references animals in some way, shape, or form. 70 to 80%, from our folk songs to our folk tales to our history to our spirituality, especially our spirituality, to our oriki, the similes we use, whether we realize how often we use them or not, the metaphors that we use, the descriptions that we use, the depictions in art and in dressing. When you think about the eku and the animals that are depicted and all that, I suppose that would refer to spirituality, or better still, homage to ancestors. I would say, if I say 70%, I would be saying that just to be safe. 70 to 80% of our culture. So animals really are important to us, but especially big cats for certain reasons. Big cats are members of the Felidae family. And as far as our encounters with members of that family of animals are concerned, we've had quite a bit of experience. They are not really often discussed as much anymore, because now there's just this myth that it is the Europeans that care about bigger sized animals and have always cared about them, when in fact they contributed largely to the disrespect that now comes from us in relation to those animals. The commercialization of certain things, of trunks, of tusks, of animal skin, and even I'm not going to blame it all on the Europeans. Even within our societies, unnecessary ego, unnecessary pride. I'll get to all of these shortly. Our history, our spirituality, our speech, so metaphors, proverbs, similes, the oriki, our culture and tradition, our folklore, our folk song. Big cats. I'm mirroring on big cats now, because if I say animals in general, if I start with just the chameleon, this is going to be a 3-hour video at the very least. So I'm focusing on big cats. So you see mentions of big cats here and there. I picked even the leopard, for instance, just the leopard. You see similes like ferebiekun or abijawarabiekun. These are common similes that are used to describe people that are brave and bold and are ready for battle at the snap of the fingers, at the whim. They're always battle ready, kind of. And then if you see somebody that is brave as well, they're often described as ekun oko oke. So ekun, the husband, because oko is not really husband, the one that can overcome or can that can, I suppose, that can climb the mountain, the hill. So the hill might be this big, but they can jump over that. I'm trying to, I don't think overcome is the word that I'm looking for, but they can attempt, they can climb the hill, they can climb. Nothing is too big for them to handle, sort of. They are brave, they are bold, they can deal with anything, especially what looks like a problem. Okay. These are all metaphors. Okay can be a metaphor for a problem, a challenge. And because the leopard is always so, the leopard is able to climb hills, and because they are big, they are hefty, and they are powerful, they have the energy to climb hills far more easily, climb hills, rocks, mountains. And when you think of children's play, you think of ẹkùn mẹ́ràn mẹ́ ó torí bọgbó mẹ́ ó tọrùn bọgbà mẹ́ ó fẹ́ mu kò má lè mú o ojú ẹkùn pọ́n ìrù ẹkùn lé. So play as well, just the leopard. This is just the leopard. And then in the oriki, you hear things like ọmọ wá, ọmọ ẹkùn, things like that. And there's also ta ló jẹ́ gbéná wojú ẹkùn láì ṣàwó, rhetorical questions that are somewhat metaphorical, like who there's puts a torch or lights a fire to take a look at the leopard's eyes if they don't really know how to handle that animal. Like I said, we have histories with these animals as far as how we were able to relate with them and sort of manage them, because these are powerful animals. They can crush you anytime. So manage in the sense that we're able to save our own lives before the disrespect now setting. I'll get there. Or even statements like ajá tó bá wọlé ẹkùn á fẹ́ jẹ̀wẹ̀. So these are, see, ẹkùn everywhere, and this is just one big cat. Or if you see a man, let's say a man has just done something powerful, it doesn't even have to be a man. See, there's the gender thing now seeping in gently. Anybody that is brave, that has just shown bravery, you can say ẹkùn. You can like leopard, but that has a meaning. That you're not just calling them a leopard because they look like a leopard or they are hefty like a leopard. Not necessarily. You're saying something with that. Maybe you saw a guy go in with, let's say, his girlfriend or his fiance, I don't know, or even his wife. Maybe they went into a place and they went to Papa Popo. And the man comes out soon after, maybe sweating, you can just that is you're with that you're saying leopard. I see what you just did there with your lady. So things like that. Or even kekere ẹkùn, very common epithet for someone that is maybe smaller sized, maybe petite, whether they are male or female. This is typically used for males though, so that's interesting. Whether they are, because of the gender thing, because of the the British culture and the females have to be soft, and so you don't describe them or you don't give them these names, and their names also became gendered. Along the line, clothing became gendered. As I mentioned, that names became gendered. Certain things became gendered. So influences of other cultures has played a part into all of these. But kekere ẹkùn, for someone that is smaller sized but is powerful. There are also even praises for these animals themselves. Ogidan lo lagiju, or you could say Ogidan lo laju. Akomonina lai lobe. You know, because of their claws, we say they can give illa. I will still talk about tribal marks and how necessary they were at a certain point, and how unnecessary they are now. Very unnecessary. Ogidan ololaju akomonila lai lobe. Because of their claws, we typically use obe, you know, knives, or I suppose they use blades too, to make tribal marks, you know. But this is not a tribal mark, by the way. This was a compulsory tribal mark that I got from the doctor that helped birth me right after I was born. So there's even there's a story behind that. But the leopard has claws that are sharp enough to give you, they don't need a knife to give you tribal marks. Like, their claws are knives. And even lions are often addressed this way as well. You could sometimes hear kiniun lo laju akomonila lai lobe, you know. The missing links as far as depictions of animals, especially animals of this kind, bigger sized cats, especially the ones that have gone extinct, and I'll get there soon. The missing link is in the stolen art. However small, certain animals were depicted on certain carvings or certain clothing that would have helped us see that, in fact, we have a really interesting history with these animals. But I suppose artworks are hidden in museums. Some are visible for people to see, some are not. Leopards and other bigger sized cats serve certain functions as served certain functions, at least the depictions of them, in not only are wanting to identify with their strength, with their beauty, with their courage, but also there's a historical thing behind that. There's a really deep historical thing behind that, and it relates even to shape-shifting and all that. I will touch on it soon, hopefully. So you see, this is the Osho-Oshogbo grove. I think that's a depiction of a tiger. Interestingly, people say that tigers are not native to Africa. I'll talk about that. This looks like a tiger, or it could have been a leopard, but it really looks like a tiger. I just tried to find like random from different random places where the leopard or another big cat is depicted, even if it's just their skin. So you look at this and this. Big cats. This is the Ooni of Ife's palace. You see how the leopard is featured. Each of these animals represents something. For the cheetah, most commonly, it's the speed. For the eku, is their fearlessness. Just notice that even there were several animals that when they saw humans, they would just, back away. I don't want any parts of that. But the leopard was very quickly identified for their bravery, for their strength, for their courage. And so you see, even historically, the desire to identify with them, the desire to be like them in some way. But something happened along the line as far as mutual respect between us and those animals. And a lot of those things are greed based and negative influence based. This is the Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò. This was his coronation. You see big cat skins or big cats themselves depicted. This is the depiction of a certain bird, and these leaves as well, akoko leaves. These are hunters. These are big sized animals. This is a horse. You see, and this man was recently coronated. Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò is, I think, is Itori land. So whenever you see, for anybody who is interested in Yoruba fashion and dressing beyond the gele, buba, the use of certain accessories, the wearing of certain animals, it didn't really used to be so, but along the line it became so. I suppose, as we explored our ability to make certain, I'm trying to avoid using the word charms, to make certain portions, even portions doesn't do it, I suppose charms and all that, in our exploration of our powers and our relationship with people of other cultures, the killings and the whatever, and the taking their trunk to do this and do that. Oh, if you take this and that and you mix it together, you will be this powerful. And so you're like, oh, the animal can do that for me, let me kill away. It was, at some point it was more like, okay, for food and for basic whatever when we had to hunt. But greed setting, this is also another, I think this was in 1964. Chief Ladoke Akintola's installment as the Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò. Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò. There's a lot that can be said, about our relationship with big cats, bigger sized members of the Felidae family. A lot that can be said regarding how we observed them and how we saw them and how we wanted to identify with them and how we related with them. I just want to, before I maybe talk about the names that we call them in Yoruba and all that, I want to talk about the Black Panther Revolutionary Party and how right on they were with choosing a Felidae as their, I don't want to say mascot because it really wasn't a football game, as their spirit animal, so to say. Very, very right on. Very, very right on, because it's also what we would have done. Now, there's a group that has risen and they call themselves the Àmọ̀tẹ́kùn. That's another big cat, the cheetah. So, that's even till now, it's what we are currently doing. It's what we would have done. It's what they did. This was, in fact, the right animal through and through. Black for a certain reason, not just any panther, but black because of the society that had to be created for. And panther, a big cat. I don't think any other animal would have been more suitable. The bravery that you find in these big cats, the strength, the skill, the wisdom, the power that they hold, the cheetah. The cheetah is for the Àmọ̀tẹ́kùn that is currently operating in Nigeria right now. The panther, the Black Panther, and you know, there was something that I wanted to say about that when I was preparing these slides. Defense. Perhaps I'll remember as we go on, but just to quickly mention, the big cat, the leopard, really was the right choice. As far as Black Panther, the film, I know that there's a lot of sensationalism with that and all that, but if you're wondering what the panther has to do with anything black, big cats really are. We really do have histories with these animals. No other animal would have been more suitable. And it's not that there's a separate animal that is called the black panther. The black panther is the melanistic color variant found in members of the genus Panthera, particularly of the leopard, in Asia and Africa, and jaguar in the Americas. Black panthers of both species have excess black pigments, but their typical spotted markings are also present. So, for that film, I know that to some degree, as far as, the in-depths of the making and the distribution and the finances that were gotten from that, the money that was gotten from that is concerned, there's really nothing to be excited about from an African perspective. But as far as the animal choice, yes, they got that one right. What do we have to do? What does the Black Panther have to do with Africans? A lot. Again, the money aspect. Did any Africans benefits? How does that help me as an African or an African American? There's that debate, which I'm not going to get into. But, it was what it was. Chadwick really embodied that. And for those who don't know, Chadwick was of Yoruba descent. I don't know if I'll be able to link this interview. I tried not to include it in my presentation because of the copyright strike that I might get if I do that. I already have one. But I suppose it's resolved now, so I don't have any more. With us, what we had to do was ground it in an authenticity that is African. So for me, it was like, well, I'm Yoruba. So what does that mean? I think that was what it was saying there. But it grounded it in, I don't know if he did any research as to how frequent the mention of bigger sized cats are in the Yoruba culture, or their depictions, or the art, or if he dug into any of that. That would have been too much, I suppose, just to play the role. But it really did embody that. It really did us proud. As far as that is concerned, I don't even know if he knew that big cats have such, especially the depictions of them. Not necessary. Later on, it became the unnecessary killings and for their skin or for certain charms. But at the initial stage, that wanting to identify, or the shape-shifting aspect of it too, between panther and human, I'll touch on it. There's really something interesting, about all of these. Really something interesting. As far as the identification is concerned, I suppose this chat might help with identifying them, but I do have videos of. So this is the leopard. I suppose they are visibly different from the jaguar. The jaguar tends to be stockier, and their rosettes tend to be larger. But I've seen leopards with larger rosettes too. I don't know if that would mean that they are like a crossbreed or something, but that's interesting. And this is the cheetah. As far as their names are concerned, for the leopard is Ekun. And there's a whole debate about how accurate that is. And the leopard is not Ekun. And there is in fact proof in the Oriki and in many things that the leopard is Ekun. But it's not just the leopard. Bigger sized cats like that have that, that shape, I suppose, that even I get there, but the bigger sized cats like that were generically called Ekun. So if you say that the leopard is Ekun, you're right. If you say that the tiger is Ekun, you're right. If you say that the jaguar is Ekun, you're also right. Kun. What is Ekun? Ekun is not something that is particular to perhaps the color of their fur or something. Kun. Kun is to growl. So Ekun, what we know that growls, because of how popular leopards were, in present day Nigeria. Once you hear their growling, you know that is Ekun, or at least I suppose you won't wait to find out which it is. You would protect yourself first of all, but whenever you hear that sound, that presence, that's Ekun. So leopards are also called Ogidon. So that this is more of an epithet that eventually became a name, Ogidon. And the cheetah. The cheetah got its name from us comparing leopards and cheetahs. We just knew that this one had to be different because of the way that their face is structured. There's a simile that exists because of it looks like they're shedding tears. So that's how we identify that we can't say that this is Ekun because this one looks kind of different. So Amotekun is what we call the cheetah, Amotekun, and the breakdown of that is Onti Amo Toto Ekun. What we know that is perhaps Toto, that is up to just as powerful as, just like the leopard, but not quite. Amo Toto Ekun. Amotekun for short, if you contract that into one word. What we know. There's also another name that the cheetah is called, Owawa. Shere rele no igbe bibi okudu agemo ogun owere Owawa belu okpe Owawa. So that would be Owawa belu okpe. That would be October. So I suppose that's for July, it's the chameleon, Agemo. Yeah, so Owawa. For October, what I just mentioned are months. Each month. Shere is January, Erele, February, Ereno, March, Igbe, April, and such. The lion is called the Kiniun. So that's the name that the lion is called. For the tiger, there's the belief that tigers have never existed in Africa, or any animal that is even remotely tiger looking. But that's not true. The ancestors of these tigers, they may be based in, is it Asia now, or where are they based? But their ancestors lived in Africa, and I'm going to perhaps do a Wikipedia search or something and show you. The tiger is Ekun. So if you call the tiger Ekun, you're correct. The jaguar is Ekun. If we saw them more, perhaps our ancestors would have given them their own epithets or their own specific names. But Ekun fits the description for all of these animals. Ekun is not particular to the leopard, is the growling, so it's not, there's nothing specific about the leopard that insists that no other animal can share that name. As far as the forgotten history is concerned, because there's also the forgotten parts of this, there are animals, big cats that existed that our ancestors had encounters with. So when you read a book like Ogboju Ode Ninu Ugbo Orumole or similar books, I think Baba Fagunwa has, these are 5, I suppose is 5 most popular books. They are called fiction, but when you really ask the hunters, when you listen in on their oriki, on their folk songs and folk tales, you know that there's something interesting there. There's something interesting there. These hunters will tell you that indeed, even if it was not the tiger, their ancestors really did encounter tiger-looking animals. So I think what happened was, as far as identifying the animals that existed, especially prehistoric animals that existed in what continent or in what area, the Europeans were looking for fossils to determine. So if you find a fossil of something, I suppose that is common sense. If you find a fossil for something, it existed there. But if you don't find it in another region, it never existed there. You have to look at the culture of each, I suppose the general culture. I can't even say the culture of the continent because there's no such thing. The general culture of specific parts of a continent to find answers to certain questions. So for the Yoruba people, the reason you will not find a lot of fossils of these prehistoric animals is, as many as they were, as is evident in many oral histories that have been passed down, is they used these bones and these animal, wastes and their fossils, that we use them for certain functions. So we were able to identify that if you take this tusk and you grind it with this thing and you do this, you can somehow appear larger when you're in the face of an enemy at war. Or if you take this leopard skin and you dry it out or whatever, you could. Then it wasn't so much intentionally killing them for all of these things. It was when the Europeans like to, especially the British, they like to depict themselves as the most civil. But these people just killed for fun. The idea of just killing for fun, just so that you can hang the head of the animal, is not our culture. Or so that you can show your friends that this was your kill from Africa. And so you employ people from that region because of the nonsense gifts that you have to give them, something that is really worthless to you. You encourage them to sell their legacies and destroy their own ecosystems. So you give them gifts and they get you this, I think, was it the last white male rhinoceros that died in 2018 or something? Extinction really is a thing that is happening again, and even at a more rapid speed than before. But I suppose we're not paying attention to these things. So the Megantron, I'm going to see if I can share my screen later on and just show you just something to encourage you to do your own research. For the rationale for preservation, why we preserve them before we were thought otherwise, initially why these animals were preserved, one of the many reasons was shape-shifting. But even before I get to shape-shifting, there were taboos that were created to protect certain forests. So you know that this is Igbo Erumole, let's say, or Igbo this deity, or Igbo that deity. In order to protect these animals, the deities would instruct that nobody except somebody that is initiated or that is of this family, or maybe you're a member of, it's only if you're a member of this family that you can survive there. Or if, taboos were created to restrict people from killing animals, and that came with the honoring of deities. I suppose now that most people are Christians and Muslims and nobody really cares about this, war are typically created in order to protect. After a while, they become useless because that thing is not relevant anymore. After a while, they may even become more important. Like, we should have been doing this ever since this deity told us to. So the honoring of deities and ancestors was one of the reasons why lots of animals were conserved and protected initially. Also, shape-shifting. Some of presently living Yoruba people are able to shape-shift. They're able to shape-shift. And it's not a skill that many people know how to do anymore. People would not just go around killing big animals or just hunting unnecessarily, because our ancestors were able to shapeshift. So the shapeshifting typically takes 3 forms. The first form would be that the person would become the animal, and people would, instead of seeing that person, well, they would really become the animal. They themselves would take on that animal. Now, I don't know how that would have taken place. Perhaps they would have had to encounter an animal or whatever, but shapeshifting typically took that form. And if you go to warriors, especially people from the lineage of past warriors, Balogun Gidi or Ode hunters, they will tell you stories about how, their ancestors were what is it called? Awo. They would wear the skin, the bodies of certain animals. See, it almost sounds confusing to me because I know that it is true. I know that there are proofs in the Oriki, in the many things. Some people would say Omowa Omeku, and they would just translate that as I'm the child of somebody that was bold, But they may not necessarily explore the part of their history in which one of their descendants was able to shapeshift into a leopard, And that is why they are called Ome. It's not so much the bravery. The bravery is part of it, but literally one of their ancestors was able to shapeshift into a tiger, a leopard, So things like that are very, very underexplored. Shapeshifting would have been one of the many reasons. Another form to the shapeshifting would be a person would remain the exact form. They will remain as they are, but the people around will see them as something else. So they could shapeshift, and somehow everybody that has her eyes would have optical illusions, and instead of seeing that person, they would see a cheetah. But the person is really themselves. They've not done anything. They've not really physically changed, but the people around us, like this is a cheetah. Even if it's not really a real looking cheetah, like a weird looking, human looking cheetah, they were able to control nature, control the environment to ensure that people didn't really see them. They saw a cheetah or a leopard instead. And another form to the shape shifting would be to leave one's body completely. and go on a trip. I suppose that would be, I don't know if that would be astral traveling. Not necessarily astral, it's more earth traveling, but without your body, but in the shape of an animal, especially a bigger sized animal. So your body will be where it is. You might be. Women also contributed to the success of these things because they needed their cooperation. So the men would lie down perhaps on the bed and cover themselves with a certain cloth and instruct their wives not to let anybody in. Nobody can come in. They would, because their body is now in a vulnerable state and it needs somebody to watch it. And they would go on journeys. Whether the leopard would be invisible, whether the leopard would not be invisible, they needed some, they would go on expeditions, or they would journey through thick parts of the forest. And they needed to trust their spouses, So the wives would literally be watching the body, keeping it warm and all that. Very, very interesting. African spiritual Yoruba. Don't let me say, when I say African spirituality, it's too general. It's too broad. It's way too broad. Yoruba spirituality in relation to shape shifting also has to be explored more. So, spirituality powers, the recognition and management of certain powers also helped with the preservation of animals before things went wild. Let me show you. I don't know if I mentioned earlier that the Megantron was one of the animals that have now gone extinct that existed in Africa. There are much more than Africans are given credit for, especially present day Nigeria. But because we've taken all the fossils and we've used them, I don't think there was the mentality then to, keep this fossil for something scientific that might happen in the future, for observation or something. I don't think there was the consciousness then that there's a chance that these animals would go extinct. But they used these animal fossils for the preparation of certain things, for certain ceremonies, certain powers, certain this, certain that. So there are much more. Let me show you what I found on Wikipedia, and then you can do even more research on your own. Also, even the idea of the mistreatment of animals now with the introduction of zoos. Having zoos was never really our culture at the very start, and perhaps that is why we are so bad with the management of animals. There was this video. I suppose those animals are not doing much better. But there was a video that was released at they are not doing, no animal can do much better in captivity. Why did I said that subconsciously? I didn't know what I was talking about. I'll see if I can find it with these keywords, and Sudan and all this. Zoos really need to be abolished. Point blank, period. So, there was this video that came out then. I mean, is this really a lion? Look at how poorly. Anyway. There's this look at the unnecessary taunting of the animal. Yeah, this was what I wanted to show. So this is I suppose the green would mean places where some of these animals, I don't know. I don't really have the time to read all of it, but some of these animals, let me just do a search with Africa and see if I can find some others that I haven't mentioned. The saber-toothed mecardont. See, our animals would have had interesting names. Some of them we don't even have pictures for. All of these are, I suppose you could call them models. They're not actually real. It's from their fossils that Europeans were able to take a wild guess for some of these. But our ancestors saw much more. Let me search. Okay, let me do my Africa search again and see if I can find blah 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 blah. The whatever lived in Africa, the this and that lived in Africa. Our ancestors would have described them with interesting names metaphorically, and we may not instantly recognize that in fact what they were describing with this metaphor, if you read that Ogboju Odeninu Gborumole, you know, it's the story of a hunter in a particular forest. Some of the animals that hunter, so it's fiction but not really, some of the animals that hunter saw, because I think that story is grounded in the reality of hunters here and there, but classified as fiction. Some of what was described really do exist. They are not strange spirits. They really do exist. They really were animals that lived then, you know. So perhaps that also needs to be explored more. Anyway, if you go to Wikipedia and you search Felidae, you will find really interesting things as far as that is concerned, you know. So if someone is discussing the Black Panther and they are sort of confused about why cats were even, what about big cats, or you are in a conversation with a friend, or you have some time on your hands, this is really another thing to be explored. Or I mean, if you might be interested in fashion, you might be an anthropologist, you might be a cultural enthusiast. Animals and our relationship with them, you know, even realistically speaking, our language and our whatever is reality based, but stories and accounts, I know that it would be much more difficult now, because I mean, especially with the animals that have gone extinct, who remembers any of that, you know. But just thought I would touch on it very, very briefly. If you have any questions, I feel weird saying this now because there are questions that I may not be able to answer. I would have to Google it myself, especially with what other prehistoric animals existed, and all of that I may not be able to answer. But if you have any questions, general questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy the rest of your day, and bye for now.
Èmi ọkọ wọn sì ọ bàbá arúgbó ìyàwó sì yá ní ọmọ sí bàbá ìlànà oko. Èmi ọkọ wọn sì ọ bàbá arúgbó ọ̀bárò lójú ọ̀ráyè gbọ́dọ̀ àwọn bàbá onílé wa. Àgọ́sà mọ́mọ́ jánu mọ́ ọ lọ́wọ́ torí bọ̀ ọ̀bá gbé wa fẹ́ gún. Eégún lè mú kò lè mú wa.